Welcome back to Cox Connections, exclusively on Cox 9 Roanoke. I'm Kim Stanley. Foam hinge and roadside art, things you might not expect to see at the Taubman Museum of Art, but they are coming this spring. Executive Director David Mickenberg is here to tell us more. It's good to see you.
Nice to be back. Thanks.
Yeah, always glad to have you on. So you've got a great exhibit coming to the
We do, and it's an exhibit that I think will surprise many. I think many people wouldn't think of seeing that material in a museum, but it is something that comes out of American culture. It's something that started with the end of gas rationing in World War II, when people took to the roads to go travel because they had the financial ability to do that and gas was available. And up sprang this sort of folk tradition of roadside art, and it sprung up all over America. It sprung up along with zoos that were on the roadside. It sprung up with grocery stores that were on the roadside. It sprung up with other roadside attractions in museums and history institutions that were all for people who were on the road. And so what you're going to see really is the beginnings and the endings of an extraordinary tradition that is uniquely American. And for the museum, which does a lot and looks at and researches a lot of indigenous production in America and a lot of folk traditions in America, this is the first time that anybody has ever looked at this. And we're looking at it because Mark Klein is a Virginia phenomena. He lives in our backyard. He is one of the last of the roadside sculptors and the roadside attraction makers. He's an extraordinary individual. So when you come in the museum, you're going to see his dinosaurs. You're going to see his King Kong on the balcony. You're going to see Abraham Lincoln and dinosaurs in relationship to the Gettysburg Address.
Now, when you say balcony, the King Kong, does that mean the one that's facing?
That's facing 581.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you will see a 14-foot tall sculpture of King Kong with an airplane.
Okay.
On the balcony.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun, but it's also serious. It ties in with Mark's drawings and cartoons, and it ties in with this long tradition, which is distinctly American, of providing roadside attractions.
Okay, and so he is from Virginia. I didn't know that.
He is.
That's
he lives
fun.
in Natural Bridge.
Okay.
He did the dinosaur park in Natural Bridge. He did Foamhenge, which is close by to Natural Bridge. And so this is the first time a museum has really taken a look at his sculptures, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Now, what made you decide to bring it here?
I think that when we started looking around for projects that would resonate with the community, we also started talking about what is there about Virginia that makes Virginia unique? What is there about cultural production in Virginia that makes Virginia unique? Part of that is the folk traditions which are represented in the permanent collection, and part of it really is this fun, amazingly historical, but enjoyable, large-scale fancies of the imagination. And we thought that would be something that people would enjoy. It activates the downstairs, which is one of the main goals of the museum, which is to get art into the atrium of the museum. But it also is a lot of fun for families and kids to see.
Yeah, so it's going to be very large, something we're not used to seeing at the museum, but will there also be smaller pieces as well?
There are going to be some smaller pieces. Also, Mark Klein's cartoons and comics are going to be on view.
Okay.
Some of his other production and drawings and sculptures are going to be on view. But by and large, I think the major attraction are not only the drawings for the sculptures and the drawings for the comic books, but are these 10, 12 major monumental sculptures that'll be throughout the second floor of the museum, as well as on in the main atrium, as well as on the balcony.
Okay, and those are done with fiberglass, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
They're all
good.
formed out of fiberglass.
Okay, yeah, it sounds really exciting. Now, you talked about it being dinosaurs, King Kong, things like that, but when you say roadside art, I mean, are there also roadside signs and any of that?
There's no roadside signs. Roadside signs appear in his drawings.
Okay.
But this is really about these fanciful sculptures that were 10, 12, 15 feet tall and long that were on the sides of roads or formed dinosaur parks or formed mystical museums. And so no real roadside signs themselves, although, you know, adjacent to the Taubman is the coffee sign and the Diet Pepsi sign, which were on the buildings across the street, which were actually moved to be in alignment with the Taubman when it opened. So there's that tradition, which is part of Roanoke, but also part of the Taubman, in terms of the placement of the museum. But this is really about those huge, fanciful sculptures. So there's even Frankenchicken, which is a huge 10-foot tall Frankenstein made out of a chicken. There's a winged rhinoceros.
Wow.
It's phenomenal stuff.
Okay, what else can the children expect to see? How about Art Venture?
Well, Art Venture is a space that holds an iconic place in the history of culture within Roanoke. It was something that was very, very successful in Center in the Square when the museum was in that location. And we are redoing the iteration of Art Venture in the Taubman, in the new building, with a lot of input from family and from kids and from focus groups and from educators, that there were other things they wanted to see in Art Venture than, and that justified a second iteration. That will open up at the end of March. There'll be a new balcony and exhibition space in there. There'll be three-dimensional printing stations. There will be a color wheel. There'll be a new theater, which we're doing with Roanoke Children's Theater. There is a sound dome, which David Wiley has helped us program in an area relating to art and music. There are sculpture tables, sculpture exhibitions, drawing centers. I mean, it's going to be a very, very different space, but a really immersive space that kids can be in and that families can work in with their kids.
Wow, I mean, I'm a mother of twins that are 8 years old. I can't wait to get them down there.
The 31st.
Yeah, with that going on, Mark Klein's exhibit, I mean, I think we forget that the art museum's for children also.
It's for children, it's for families. It's really to have a good time, to learn, to socialize, to really have a place of respite from what goes on a daily basis and come and enjoy.
That's great. Well, real quick, before we close out, how is the museum doing with the budget and what?
I think the museum's still challenged, but it's doing better.
Okay.
From the time I came here 2 years ago to now, fundraising is up by 250%. Our corporate support from the community is amazing. It's up by 350%. Attendance as of today is 60% over where it was a year ago this time. In fact, we're getting a little nervous that we will this year break the record for attendance in any annual year in the history of the museum.
That's awesome.
And that's coming from all segments of the community. Membership will go beyond the highest level it's ever been. And I think when that message gets out, there's more support which is coming in.
Right.
There's more activities which are happening. The focus of being an art center that's accessible to everybody, that's a collaboration with other organizations, is really beginning to take resonance within the community. We still have a ways to go.
Okay.
Everybody knows that, but we're getting there.
Good. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks
and
for
our
having me.
viewers can check out your website. I'm sure there's so much they can do to help the museum as well. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks a lot.
Good to see
My
you.
pleasure.
All
Thanks for
right.
being here.
Thank you. Still to come on Cox Connections. Phase 1 is complete. Find out what's happening next with the renovations at Center in the Square.